Good morning. I'm Reggie York. Most of you know that. This sermon is about my path to becoming a college professor, a path that is not at all usual for college professors, a path I hope you will find interesting. I've been a member of this church for 3 years, a church that is bound by values, not by religious dogma, which is where I fit. I think most importantly for me, though, you are some of the most interesting people I've ever known in my life. And I really, yes, pat yourself on the back, would you? But it's been great being a part of this congregation. When I think of seminal events in my life, I would, of course, think of things like the birth of my 2 sons and the support of my family and friends and my life partner, Louise, and a few marriages I'd like to forget. But that is not my focus. The label of my sermon is derived from an incident on that journey from my neighborhood in Charlotte to my destination as a college professor at 3 different universities. This sermon is arranged around 6 lessons I learned from my journey. Lesson 1 is about developing your own path when the one set out for you doesn't work. Lesson 2 is the recognition that seminal events in your life may not be so recognized at the time they occur. Lesson 3 is about the importance of changing your friends when you are young, if your friends do not fit the path that you are seeking. The 4th lesson is about finding college as the key to finding my path, especially for a boy for whom college was not an expectation. Lesson 5 is that some things are discovered by accident. Lesson 6 tells of my discovery that teaching was my place. My mother had a major influence on my life story. I have said to many people over many years that my father preached religion, he was a minister, but my mother lived it. So I had great respect for my mother. And she's a part of a little bit later of the story here. She modeled being a good person, and I appreciate what she gave to me. She treated people with great respect. In her mind, we are all God's children. So one of the things, now remember, I grew up in Charlotte in the late 40s and through the 50s. So try to go back in the South. Go back, way back there, because in my neighborhood, when you referred to black people, you used the N-word. Everybody did that. That was just common. We didn't. She would not allow it. Because she saw that, not that she was a great liberal, she saw that as a sign of disrespect. And that was not what we should do when we're all God's children. So my dad, who was a minister, preached, and my mother gave an example. So I grew up with a lot of religion in my life. We were, by the way, in church on Sunday morning, back to church Sunday evening, and back to church Wednesday evening. So I spent a lot of time in church when I was growing up. The path laid out for me was to complete high school and get a job. My mother was determined that we were all going to graduate from high school, which was not what everybody did in my neighborhood in those days. So lesson 2 is you don't always recognize similar events in your life when they happen. There are 3 events I recall in this particular category. The first event was that when my oldest brother, 5 years older, came home one day and right after high school and said, "I'm going to college." I laughed. We don't go to college. Are you getting too big for your britches? I was only 13 years old at that time, and my brother was 5 years older. At that time, I was not aware that this would influence my life, but it obviously did. I had to wait a few years before I saw this kind of influence. Obviously, I guess it started working on my subconscious for a while there. The second event that influenced the second event that was what influenced my reputation in my school, especially in the eyes of the vice principal, who I'll get to in a minute. Jo Foster, the woman who ran things in my school. By the way, we had a familiar pattern in those days. You hire a man to be the top dog, give him the big office, the big salary, but you better hire a woman to make damn sure things will happen. So when things were happening, Jo Foster was the one out there doing it, making sure the buses were there, making sure we were minding ourselves in the cafeteria and so forth. And T.C. Wright, the principal, I don't know what the hell he did, except he had an office he was in sometimes. Now, T.C. Wright was a very large man, very intimidating. He was over 6 feet tall and weighed at least 300 pounds. And he had a booming voice that could put the fear of God into a dead fish. That was T.C. Wright. So when you heard announcements over the intercom system, it was usually Jo Foster, because it was usually about taking care of business. But if it was T.C. Wright, it means something serious was going on. So one day I'm sitting in class, and on the intercom comes T.C. Wright. Will Reginald York, Carrie Tanner, and Mickey Hargrove come to the office immediately? I said to myself, oh darn. Well, I didn't say darn. That was not what I grew up with. So the three of us went down to the office. There were 2 Charlotte police officers sitting in T.C. Wright's office, and they took us downtown for questioning about a crime that neither one of us had done. I wasn't even familiar with it. I didn't even know about it. But, of course, that left a bit of an impression there. Now, I need to tell you, too, that I had 2 older brothers who had gone to the same high school. My oldest brother had gotten the award for Best Actor from his work in the drama department. The next brother, who was older than me, you know the senior superlatives? I don't know if they do them anymore, but in those days you got these senior superlatives. Well, this brother got Best Looking and Biggest Heartbreaker. So those were my 2 older brothers. Now let's get to the title of my sermon. I had gotten into a little trouble. I think I'd brought a switchblade knife to school. As a matter of fact, I was just thinking today when I was coming over here, you see, you have one of these, you go like that? See that? Isn't that cool? Well, a switchblade knife does the same thing. I thought that was pretty cool, so I was going around school going, hey, look what I got. Well, that was against the rules, so I ended up in the vice principal's office. Unfortunately, my mother was also asked to join us that day. The vice principal said to my mother, now Ron and Claude, my older brothers, were fine students at this high school, but that Reggie will never amount to anything. You might think these words are unbelievable coming from a vice principal, but again, turn the clock back to the 1950s in the South. Things were a little different in those days. But that's what really annoyed me about that was the presence of my mother. My mother was a wonderful person, and the fact that I had embarrassed her was very disheartening to me. Now, the 3 events my brother decided to go to college by questioning by police and the horrible statement by my vice principal, I did not recognize at the time they would be seminal events in my life. So, but now to lesson 3. When you are young and you want to change your path, it's usually a good idea to change your primary group of friends. I grew up with friends who were not headed to college. In fact, one of them was headed to prison. That was my next door neighbor, Gary Dan, who became semi-famous for certain criminal events that happened, including a big wild goose chase from North Carolina to South Carolina back where he was being chased by the Highway Patrol, etc. It got on the TV channels, by the way. But I had an experience that changed my network of friends in high school when I took a course in dramatics, as a matter of fact, and this was a group of people going to college, so it really changed my social situation. Lesson 4 for me was finding college as the path to finding, as the way to find my path. I tend to crave the intellectual challenge, like finding the best way to teach a course or writing a text or doing something of that nature. I went to 3 different universities, UNC Charlotte, UNC Chapel Hill, and Tulane University. I received my BA degree in political science from UNC Charlotte. My courses there, I was helped. I have been a very fortunate person in many ways. I have a lot of gratitude about the fact that I could work and go to school and get the job done. And then when I was at Tulane University, I was helped by scholarships that I wouldn't have been able to do it without that. My intellectual curiosity was better the further I went in education. I enjoyed courses in my college, my undergraduate college, better than late classes, better than early classes. Graduate school was even better, and my most fun experience was in the PhD program. Lesson number 5, sometimes you discover what you need just by accident. That's the story of my finding social work as my profession. I did not know anything about social work when I was in college, but a friend of mine said, there's a job opening in the department of the Child Welfare Department in Charlotte. You might be interested in that. I went down for the job interview, and most importantly, I got the job. And it was just where I belonged. It was very interesting. It enlarged my life enormously, and it was the right profession for me in many, many ways. But I really found my path when I began teaching. I taught at UNC Chapel Hill, at East Carolina University, and UNC Wilmington, where I retired several years ago. But I continue teaching there on a part-time basis because I love it. I can't imagine ever stopping that. It's just what I love doing. My path was a little uncertain at times, but it really worked well for me. I've always enjoyed designing courses, putting my stamp on it. I especially enjoyed watching students learn and learning from the process myself. When I think back to early days, I can remember spending time alone just thinking, imagining all kinds of things that worked. But I didn't have an environment where I could talk about that. So I just had to do it all by myself. I also enjoy writing. I've written several books, and right now I'm actually working on one on teaching on human service research using AI, the new thing on the block. My overall recommendation to you from my experience is to continue your journey in finding your path, particularly when you're young. Most of us have found our path in this congregation. Your path may be very different, of course, from mine. Maybe it's being the best support for others, or the pursuit of social justice, or playing a musical instrument, or just finding a way to enjoy life. Whatever it is, I suggest you keep going until you find the right path for you and enjoy it while you're there. There are probably more options available to you when you're young and growing up than you think. and there are probably more people willing to help you to imagine. And let me finally thank you for the opportunity to tell my story. It's been a great experience for me, so be sure to tell your story when you get a chance.